Homelessness. We don't exactly know how many people are homeless in America on any given night, except the one night a year when the government organizes an effort to count. That's pretty shocking. We know how many people are using Twitter at any moment or how many kids are in school on any given day, but not how many people are living and sleeping in a church mission, a public shelter, a bus station, a car, a park, on a street, under a bridge, or outside a library, like the couple I often saw on Sundays. On the one night in January 2013, when the government and partners counted homeless people across the country, they found 610,042 people had nowhere to call home. In recent years, efforts to help people get into more stable housing, like those specifically for veterans, have seen some good results, and the number of homeless people counted each year on that one night has been going down. But there is still more to do to bring that number to zero. In addition to not knowing how many people are homeless in America most nights of the year, we also don't know how many people are homeless throughout a year. This is in large part because homelessness, for many people, is a temporary, though terrifying, reality, meaning most people who are homeless over a year wouldn't be homeless on any single night. In 2012, an estimated 7.4 million people at some point during the year had no home and lived doubled up with family and friends or in temporary housing or shelters. That's more than 10 times the number of people counted the following January. Fewer people sleeping on the street on one night doesn't necessarily mean more people have found a home. Some recent studies estimate that as many as 1 out of every 30 American kids are homeless for at least one night a year, and for many, it's not just one night. In other words, if you have 25 kids in your class, on average, almost one kid in every class at some point in a year is homeless. And that night in January 2013, almost 1 in 4 of the homeless counted were kids under 18. More needs to be done until all people have roofs over their heads at night and every kid has a home to go to after school. In 4th grade, I was in Mrs. Porter's class. She remains one of the best teachers I ever had. There was another 4th grade class across the hall. Given the neighborhoods around my school, odds are that at least one of my classmates was homeless at some point over the school year. I don't say that so that you look around to try and figure out who is homeless. In fact, I think it's only your or anyone's business if classmates choose to share whether or not they slept in their home or a shelter the night before. But I want you to know how likely homelessness is so that you and all of us can be sensitive to what anyone may be going through on a given day, including the person sitting next to you in math class or standing ahead of you in the lunch line. It may sound obvious, but the main reason people are homeless is because they cannot find affordable housing, meaning they can't find a home that they can afford to rent or buy within their budget. A budget is a plan for how families will spend the money they have and the money they earn. Families with more money can worry less about how much things cost, particularly when it comes to necessities like food, water, rent, heating, clothes, and transportation, whether for a car, subway, or bus fare. And there's money for things like vacations. People on a tight budget who don't have a lot of money and rely on their modest paychecks don't have a lot of wiggle room. Most money they earn will be spent on necessities, and it's hard to save money for a vacation or an emergency period. In the case of poor families, what they earn often doesn't cover even the basics. The most expensive items in most family budgets is housing. So thousands of families end up homeless because they simply cannot afford their rent or mortgage. 1 in 10 American households spends more than half of its income on a place to live. If people get sick and then are stuck with high medical bills, or they have to take time off work to care for a loved one and then aren't earning a paycheck, that's a huge strain on an already tight budget. That can be stressful for any family, and for some families, it could mean losing their homes. There are also very real reasons why people sometimes choose to leave their homes, particularly women who are being abused or hurt by men they're living with. Too often, abused women have to choose between living with the people hurting them and being homeless. If these women are moms, their children have to live with one heartbreaking and dangerous choice or another. There are many myths and misconceptions about homelessness that are important to correct. For most individuals and families, homelessness is a temporary state between jobs or even paychecks. But too often, it's a temporary state that repeats itself over and over again. But that's not true for everyone. In 2013, an estimated 1 in 6 homeless Americans at any point, like that night in January, are chronically homeless. Another misconception is that the homeless in America look a certain way. If you think of a homeless person, what do you see in your mind? In reality, homelessness in America, like poverty, looks like America. Homelessness affects Americans of all ages, all racial, ethnic, and religious backgrounds, in cities, rural areas, north, south, east, and west. It is true that you are more likely to see African Americans, Native Americans, and Hispanic Americans suffer from homelessness for many reasons, including relatively higher rates of poverty and unemployment, as well as the legacy and still present ugly reality of housing discrimination. Housing discrimination can take many forms, such more obvious than others. People or businesses that own or rent homes may refuse to sell or rent to people because of their race, their religion, where they're from, whether they have children, or whether they're disabled. Or they raise the sale price of a home for an African American family, but not a white family, or refuse to negotiate the monthly rent with a Hispanic family, but not a white family, or tell a Native American family all the apartments have been sold when there are still plenty available units for a white family. All of that is illegal and wrong, yet all still happen far too frequently. An estimated 2 million times a year across the US. As one example, in 2013, African Americans in Boston were denied mortgages at 3 times the rate of white applicants. Our military veterans are also disproportionately represented in the homeless population. meaning that the number of homeless veterans is an unexpectedly large number compared with the percentage of all Americans who are veterans. That night in January 2013, nearly 1 in 10 of the homeless were veterans. Why are there so many homeless veterans? It's another complex question, but one reason is that many veterans suffer from post traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, an effect of being exposed to violence, extreme situations, and war, which may make it harder to find and keep a job. The good news is that there has been a dramatic drop in homeless veterans since 2005, a 70% drop. But close to 58,000 veterans in 2013 without reliable roofs over their heads is far too many. So while progress has been made, more still needs to be done to help veterans get the housing and support they need. Yet another misconception is that homeless kids aren't in school. As discussed earlier, they are in school, and some of the kids you likely know and sit next to have at some point faced the frightening prospect of not knowing where they'll sleep at night. Homelessness doesn't only affect kids' lives outside of school, it also affects how kids do in school. If you, like me, have been fortunate enough to never worry about where you spend each night, think about where in your home you do your homework. Maybe in your room, or maybe at the kitchen table where I did mine. Imagine what it would be like if you had to move often and some days didn't know where you'd be doing your homework or where you'd be sleeping. Imagine how stressful that would be. How hard it would be to pay attention in class or to concentrate on taking a test. Homeless kids are twice as likely as non homeless kids to fall behind in school and have to repeat a grade. I can't even imagine how hard it would be to focus on homework when you're also trying to help your parents figure out where you'll sleep that night, or to take a test if you slept in a different place every night the week before. Yet another misconception is that homeless Americans sleep only on the streets, and sadly, some do, but the majority, particularly kids, sleep inside shelters, missions, or shared homes. When Jade's family fell on hard times and lost their home, she had a tough time as her family worked to stay out of shelters and off the streets. She said, "It was the beginning of my freshman year in high school. We bounced around from couch to air mattress, relying on family members and friends for months. I found myself killing time after school or in the library so I would be out of the way for as long as possible. When I was in someone else's home, I wanted to be silent and invisible. Very often, I went to school exhausted and completely stressed out. I'd be sitting in algebra or French and would start crying because the level of stress was unbearable. I no longer felt ready to take on the world. Instead, it was like my world was falling apart." Thankfully, Jade was part of an amazing organization called Girls Inc., which works to empower girls to succeed in school and in life. Through Girls Inc., trained mentors and volunteers build lasting relationships with girls in safe, girls only spaces. They help girls set their own goals and work to give them the skills and knowledge needed to reach those goals. Girls Inc. mainly works with girls from low income families. Jade's Girls Inc. mentor helped her stay positive, and even helped her family get a storage unit for their stuff when they moved around. Today, Jade is at Boston University, and she's committed to helping other kids stay in school even if they lose their homes. She wants to be there to help someone else like her Girls Inc. mentor was for her. To learn more about Girls Inc. and find a local Girls Inc. chapter near you, visit girlsinc-online.org. The site also has resources to help girls, as well as boys, and their families think about setting goals, budgets, finding the right schools, like Boston University for Jade, and much more. The story of Jade's family is pretty typical for families who are homeless. Some people might believe that everyone who is homeless is living with serious health challenges and struggling with mental illnesses. That's not true, and it's particularly not true for homeless kids. But it is true that many adults who are homeless suffer from a serious mental illness or medical condition. Some surveys say as many as 1 in 4 homeless adults in the US suffer from some form of mental illness. That's a lot of people who are not getting the medical care they need to manage their illnesses. This is important to solve. It's also important to remember that the most likely reason a family is homeless is a lack of affordable housing, or housing that's within a family's budget. The recent decline in homelessness, as counted on that night once a year, tells us something about what's working to help people stay in their homes or quickly find new housing if they lose their homes. The persistently high numbers of people who are forced to live with their family and friends, like Jade's family was, tells us more still needs to be done. Federal and local governments have successfully stopped some people from losing their homes through programs that help pay part of the rent for poor families. These are called vouchers. And by encouraging the building of more affordable housing. Addressing homelessness protects human dignity. All people should have a home, and it also protects lives. In 2014, in Washington, D.C., on an unseasonably cold spring day, 2 people who had been sleeping outside died from hypothermia, or from being too cold. They were just blocks from the White House, where the president lives, and I had the privilege of living when I was a teenager. It may sound simple, and on one hand, it is. Ending homelessness in America would require everyone to have access to housing that is safe, affordable, and large enough for each family. Making that happen is not easy, even for families in which at least one person is earning an income. I am a big believer in supporting what's been proven to work. Current research shows we need more affordable housing to prevent homelessness in the first place. A housing first approach has proven to help people who are already homeless move back into and stay in homes so that parents can find and keep stable jobs and kids can go to the same school regularly from a place they can reliably call home. Housing first Housing first also means helping those with mental and physical illnesses get the treatment and care they need from trained medical professionals. This approach generally depends on different groups working together, including the government, hospitals, clinics, religious groups, community centers, veterans advocates, and others. It's also important to keep houses safe so that people never have to leave their homes because of concerns that a roof or wall may collapse. In high school, I went on a church mission trip to the Appalachia Service Project, ASP, to Breathitt County, Kentucky. We worked with one family for a week, using hammers, nails, plywood, and more to strengthen their home's foundation, walls, and porch. That enabled the family to stay in their home. Without those improvements, they'd expected to have to leave soon without anywhere else to go, because they had thought their house would literally have fallen apart. Helping another family have a sense of security about their home was one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. ASP has been matching volunteers with low income families throughout Appalachia for more than 45 years and welcomes volunteers 14 or older through church youth groups. If you're interested in spending a spring break, a week in the summer, or any other time repairing homes for low income families, I hope you'll talk to your minister. You can find out more at asphome.org. ASP is a Christian group, but other religious and interfaith groups do similar work, so even if there isn't a minister in your life, if you're drawn to this type of work, I hope you'll talk to the religious and faith leaders who are. Rebuilding Together does related work across the country, making homes safer and healthier for low-income Americans, and Habitat for Humanity builds new homes for low-income Americans. To work on a Habitat home, you have to be at least 16, but you can check with your local chapter to see if there are ways where you can help out at any age. Some Rebuilding Together affiliates accept volunteers starting at 14, and they also work to find meaningful ways for kids, like in the picture above, to be involved beyond working with hammers and nails. I've volunteered for a few times with both Rebuilding Together and Habitat for Humanity, and like my time with the Appalachia Service Project, it's deeply rewarding to make an impact in a visible way when a wall's been put up, a garden cleaned out, a new floor put down. To learn more about Rebuilding Together and Habitat for Humanity, including work they might be doing in your community, please visit their websites rebuildingtogether.org and habitat.org. There are very real ways you can combat homelessness and support homeless people without ever picking up a hammer, including encouraging adults in your life to pick up a hammer. You can raise awareness about the issue. I imagine a lot of your friends don't know how many people are homeless throughout the year in our country. I imagine too that many people you know may be shocked by how many kids have to confront the scary reality of homelessness in their own lives, like Jade did. Sometimes it helps to put a face on big challenges like this one, so people think about sharing Jade's story or others you may know like hers. If people know that fighting homelessness benefits real people, particularly kids, hopefully they'll work even harder to help. You can encourage adults in your life to volunteer at shelters, especially to help take care of, read to, or tutor kids, as just a few examples. You probably can't volunteer in shelters because shelters generally require volunteers to be at least 18 years old. This is different from other parts of the book, particularly the next section on hunger. The Coalition of the Homeless is a good source for volunteer options to share with adults in your life, which you can find at coalitionforthehomeless.org. You can also help make being homeless less scary and more bearable for kids who are just like you, except that they don't have a place to dependably call their own. That's exactly what California native Alex has been doing for years. And he's only 13. When Alex was 6, he realized that every time he finished building a Lego set, there were always leftover pieces. He decided to collect his extra pieces and extra pieces from other kids to donate to kids whose parents couldn't afford to buy Lego sets. Alex calls his effort Brickshare, and he's already given lots and lots of Lego bricks away, all to kids whose families are living in local shelters, so that those kids can play, build, and imagine, regardless of where they are or might be sleeping. He organizes events, BrickBot drives, where kids can build Lego sets called BrickBots out of donated Lego bricks. He then donates these BrickBots to other organizations that support thousands of homeless kids in his community. You could start a similar effort in your community or support Alex's efforts by mailing Lego bricks directly to him or by donating money to buy full Lego sets. You can find more information on how to do both at brickshare.biz. If Lego sets don't excite you, the same approach could be applied to other toys, books, and games you've outgrown or want to share, provided the materials are in good shape. It's important that anything you donate to a shelter be something that you'd want to read, play with, use, or wear. Families in shelters need and want the same things you have at your home, and every Lego set, book, and sweatshirt matters. Think about what you wear during the week and over a whole year. You probably wear different clothes to school, to church, synagogue, temple, or mosque, to play sports in, and for special occasions and holidays. Unless you live somewhere it's warm all the time, you probably wear different clothes in December than July. Next time you outgrow a piece of clothing or a game, think about whether it's still in good condition, because no one wants something that is torn, stained, or broken. And if so, talk to your parents about donating it to help a kid whose family is homeless or struggling. You can encourage your parents to do the same. If this is something you're passionate about, consider starting a clothing, book, or Lego drive at your school. To find a shelter or other program like the Salvation Army or Goodwill, where you know your donation will make a difference, you can ask your parents, teachers, and any religious leaders in your life who will probably have good suggestions. Since the high price of housing is a key reason for homelessness, you can organize with your families, friends, neighbors, and classmates to tell your mayor, your representatives, city council member, congressperson, and senators, as well as our president, that you want to see more safe, affordable housing for people of all incomes where you live. Habitat for Humanity has a useful toolkit to help kids reach out to elected officials, which you can find on their website. How best to achieve the goal of enough affordable and good housing may look different and be paid for differently in different parts of the country. But the first step of solving a problem is making sure that your elected officials know it's a problem you think is important to solve. whether for veterans, families, or all other people who are homeless on any given night over a year. One way to do that is by signing petitions you agree with or on the Change.org platform focused on raising awareness about homelessness and the need for more affordable housing. Or you can start your own petition and ask your friends and classmates to join your efforts online. You can even collect signatures the old fashioned way, by hand, whatever feels right to you. Finally, you can avoid judging people who are homeless or people who are hungry. There's a saying, "There, but for the grace of God, go I," which means if fate worked out differently, if we were born to different parents at a different time, in a different place, any one of us could be homeless, sick, or hungry.